Hello scholars, welcome. Mr. Hinkle here. Today I want to talk about the history of ocean exploration from as far as we've ever been able to archaeologically discover through time up to today. So the oceans are fascinating and they cover 71% of Earth's surface, 97% of all water on Earth is ocean water, and they have been corridors for exploration and for the migration of civilizations to populate every island and every continent on our Earth. Pretty cool. So what we're doing today is discussing ocean exploration from ancient times to contemporary, highlighting some of the major breakthroughs and discoveries that we have seen through this time period. What do you think? You excited? I'm excited. Let's do this. A giant piece of bamboo that was carved into a boat, dated to be about 10,000 years old. Awesome. So earliest archaeological evidence for individuals making boats is about 10,000 years ago. That's really awesome. Well, in order to get somewhere, in order to explore, we are navigating. Every time you leave your home, you are navigating. You have some type of a map, mental or your phone, and ability to communicate direction. Right now, our reference system is cardinal directions, north-south, east-west, something like this. North-south, east-west. And an ability to communicate this reference frame on a grid that, whether we've learned it or not, we're all communicating. So why did navigation start? Well, just for exploration's sake, to travel, to acquire foods, to transport goods, to migrate to new islands. And as societies, civilizations started to develop, it gave an opportunity for differing cultures and different places to interact, to trade, to share, so they might learn and grow from each other. The history of navigation is awesome. It's happened in lots of different ways in lots of different places. Now we navigate with Google Maps. Open up our phone, type in an address, boom, tell me where to go. But what did people do before maps? They used compasses. What did they use before compasses? The stars and the sun and various means like stick charts. So here we have coconut fronds and shells. The shells representing the islands, the coconut fronds representing the direction of the ocean currents. Now, these were made by Pacific Islanders to populate the Pacific Ocean and to travel back and forth. Made by individuals who had learned, right? So, the ability to communicate direction, right? And a map. This is the map. The direction, the waves. Amazing. And the Pacific Islanders, really incredible how they could travel long distances across the ocean in these boats that they had also built themselves in order to populate all these oceanic islands. It's very impressive. There was a few pushes of navigation, right? We've got the Lapita, Melanesia, and Micronesia making their way further out, 1100 BCE, so that's 1300 years ago, starting to populate some of these southern Polynesian islands, right? New Zealand, French Polynesia, Eastern Island, Pitcairn, the Hawaiian Islands, all of this happening within the last few thousand years. Pacific navigation cultures really spreading out using various navigation techniques that we talked about: the sun and the stars, stick charts, ocean currents, wave patterns, bioluminescence of organisms in the ocean. Birds. Birds are smart. Do the birds know where they're going? They're going to go on land soon. That's awesome. Wind, weather patterns. So this is before technology. Well, what is technology? I'd say these are technologies. They're just ancient technologies. But before electronic technology, I think is what I was thinking. I just think this is absolutely fascinating. So the Aboriginal Australians would develop song lines or dreaming tracks. Literally, they would take landmarks and they would create songs that incorporated the landmarks. And one person in each tribe would learn every single one of these dreaming songs or these song lines so that they could communicate them to the entire tribe, the entire village, and that could pass on for generations, and they would interact with other tribes. And these songs would give landmarks to navigate across land and ocean. Wow, people are so creative and so ingenuitive. I'm just so impressed by people. It's awesome. Let's go to European navigation. So around 2000 BCE, so this is about 4,000 years ago, we've got navigation arts from the Phoenicians. They started to explore the Mediterranean Sea, the Red Sea, the Indian Ocean. And this is an image depicting the first circumnavigation around the tip of Africa around 590 BCE, so about 2,500 years ago, which is awesome. That is so cool that people were making boats 2,500 years ago and sailing around the bottom of Africa. I can't even imagine. I wish I was on one of those voyages. Other things are happening during these times, right? So 350 BCE, Pythias learns how to navigate using the North Star. He recognizes, oh, okay, so that North Star helps him for his navigation, right? This leads to a discussion on moons and tides and the midnight sun. I don't know if you could hear that, but it was really loud. Eratosthenes, again, before the Common Era, is the first person to determine Earth's circumference using the angles of light on sticks at various parts of the day. Elementary geometry calculates Earth's tilt. This is amazing. This is amazing. And so what these do, right, is we're getting closer to a coordinate grid system. So we have early exploration of the Pacific Islanders, of the Phoenicians, of the Greeks. The Greeks are starting to understand how longitude and latitude, right, or the size of the Earth, the North Star, we can locate ourselves. Claudius Ptolemy creates a map, one of the earliest maps of the world. And it's based off of a rudimentary coordinate system that is the foundation of latitude and longitude today. Now, this is big. This is what our current maps are based on, latitude and longitude. Your Google Maps, latitude and longitude. So Ptolemy's putting it in, right? People didn't know there was no GPS. There was no satellite technology. It was just exploration and stories of what was out there. And so here we get around 150 AD, or in the Common Era, this rudimentary map showing the 7 seas, right? The Red Sea, the Mediterranean Sea, the Persian Gulf, the Black Sea, the Adriatic Sea, the Caspian Sea, and the Indian Ocean. Now this, as far as this corner of the world knew, where they were writing and recording and documenting, was the entire world. This is the old world. It wasn't the only world, but for recorded history, this is where it was happening. A history of conquest and civilization that had a limited view, that did not know that there was a bigger world out there that had humans populating every continent on Earth. So exploration out of the 7 seas started to happen. The Vikings were a seafaring people, and they had a series of conquests that moved and populated Iceland to Greenland and even landed on Vinland, which is now Newfoundland. There was a period of time during the Middle Ages called the Medieval Warm Period that allowed establishments on these very cold places, Iceland and Greenland. But then they got forced off because it got cold. There was conflicts and fighting with some of the locals. Sure enough, hey, there's Native Americans. They were already there. So they ended up going back to the Viking homelands. In this period, medieval times, we have boat technologies that are increasing. And specific sailors, Christopher Columbus, John Cabot, and Vasco Nunez de Balboa. Now, Christopher Columbus is credited with discovering the New World. People already lived there. Native Americans were present in North America and all of South America. But the Old World didn't know it. So from their perspective, because this is very perspective-based, he discovered the New World. Basically, he informed the Old World, right? It's all about hubris centered around me. I am the best. Everything revolves around me, right? You have Western Europe saying, we're the only part of the world. And Christopher Columbus going, you know what? I bet I can sail the other way around the world, find India. But he ended up running into the Americas and now is credited with the discovery. Although he never actually stepped foot on North America, he's got that credit. John Cabot, he was an Italian navigator. He's the first known European explorer to land on North America since the Vikings, because they get that credit. And then Vasco Nunez de Balboa, he's the first European to reach the Pacific from the New World, going through the land crossing. Oh, this is a little bit low. The land crossing at the Isthmus of Panama. So exciting times. Exploring across the Atlantic Ocean from Western Europe. I mean, what happened after that, geopolitically and culturally, has its dark moments, but in the context of ocean exploration, exciting times. So where did this go? Okay, now we've got the boats. We understand that the Americas are there. So, wow, okay, it's possible to sail across the Atlantic, find land. How big is the Earth? Can we sail around it? This was the objective of Ferdinand Magellan. He was on a circumnavigation of the entire world beginning in 1519. A couple years later, landed on a Pacific island, didn't make it, got into a fight, quarrel with the locals, and they took him out. Sorry, buddy, bad news for you. He sometimes is credited with that first circumnavigation, but he didn't actually complete it. Juan Sebastian del Caño completed it in 1522, paving the way for conquest of South America and the Spanish conquering of the Incas and the Mayas, right? That history is deep. Spain went on to really have a big stake in the world because they had a really big navy. Their armada was extensive. Their boat technology was good. They sailed around conquering many places in the world. Let's go a couple hundred centuries later. Okay, so conquest has been happening. Boats sailing around the world, that's been happening. Now we're looking at science. So what happened in the 16th to 17th century? The scientific revolution. Awesome. So now we're starting to think about the world and how it formed, geology, and life and how it formed, biology, and the oceans. So Captain James Cook sails around the world, 3 scientific voyages, mapping islands in the Pacific and measuring ocean characteristics. That's awesome. He unfortunately met his end with a feud with the locals in Hawaii in 1779 in his 3rd voyage. Didn't get to finish it. Sorry, James Cook, but he is commemorated in the Cook Islands around Australia. So fast forward about a century, the HMS Challenger made the first oceanic measurements of depth. Now this is really important because before this, nobody knows what's under there. The bottom of the oceans, it's flat. There's nothing down there. But to the discovery of the HMS Challenger, there are certain areas in the ocean that are unfathomably deep. Deepest place in the ocean, the Challenger Deep. Little shout out to the HMS Challenger. So this was huge. This gave us a better understanding of the oceans as an actual ecosystem that supports life and that it is variable down underneath at the bottom of the ocean. Since then, we've mapped the ocean floor. See my Mapping the Ocean Floor lecture. We've sent people to the deepest part, first time in the 60s. Don Walsh and Jacques Piccard traveled 35,000 feet underneath the ocean to map or to visit the deepest place. And then no one went back until 2012, and James Cameron, the director, he went back, did it. And starting about 2019, we've had about 23 voyages down to the Mariana Trench. It is more accessible, and there's a greater interest in that happening now, so people are going. Now we can visit sunken ships. We can go to the deepest places of the ocean. We understand what the bottom of the ocean looks like. But our recent technology is a pretty new development. People have been exploring the oceans ever since they've been looking at them with that thirst and that hunger and that curiosity of what could be out there and how far can I go and can I learn about the unknown. And it has developed through time, through the development of maps, the discovery that the world is much bigger, the sharing of information, and the circumnavigation of our entire Earth that then has a scientific lens, which ultimately leads us to the science of oceanography, learning about the systematic ways that our oceans work. So thank you so much, and I'll see you again.